The air was cooling as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, casting long golden shadows across the park entrance. Laughter echoed from families and joggers passed by, but on the sidewalk just outside the gate, the world felt different, quieter, heavier. A tired woman sat on an old blanket, her eyes scanning each passerby with silent hope. Beside her, a cardboard sign read in careful handwriting, "Puppies for sale, need help." Nestled in a worn cardboard box lay a tiny, shivering puppy, its eyes mirroring the same uncertainty that hung in the air. Next to the woman stood a little girl, no older than 6, with tangled hair and oversized shoes. She clutched a threadbare stuffed animal in one hand, the other resting protectively on the puppy. Her eyes darted to each adult walking past, but most looked away, some in discomfort, others simply too busy. Then, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. From it stepped a man in a sharp suit, phone still in hand, clearly on his way somewhere important. He glanced around distractedly before his eyes fell on the girl. Something made him pause. She stepped forward hesitantly, summoning all the courage she had. Looking up at him, she whispered, "Please buy our puppy. We really need the money." The man stared down at her. Something in her voice, soft but filled with quiet desperation, pierced through his polished exterior. He looked past her to the mother, now lifting her eyes. Recognition flickered across his face. But the little girl didn't know him. She didn't know he was the CEO who'd fired her mom months ago during downsizing. All she saw was a stranger, and a last chance. And he saw, perhaps for the first time, the real cost of one of his decisions. The man sat motionless in the driver's seat of his sleek, black luxury car, the engine still humming beneath him. He had pulled over just around the corner, heart beating faster than he expected. The tinted windows cloaked him from the world outside, but his eyes stayed locked on the rearview mirror. Through the mirror, he could still see them, the woman and her little girl sitting on the cold sidewalk, the small cardboard sign between them like a quiet cry for help. The puppy curled in the box beside them whimpered softly, unnoticed by the crowd streaming past. His hands tightened around the leather-wrapped steering wheel. His expensive watch gleamed under the dashboard light, but he didn't notice. His mind was elsewhere, back in the conference room, months ago. The finance team had shown charts, percentages, names. Names that became numbers. Layoffs. Necessary, they'd said. Efficient. And one of those names had been hers. He hadn't known her well, just remembered her as punctual, kind, always bringing her daughter to office picnics. A single mom. Quiet, but reliable. Disposable, apparently. His jaw clenched as he exhaled slowly. Now she was out here. Selling a puppy. Her daughter begging strangers. "I didn't know it had come to this," he murmured to himself, voice heavy with something he wasn't used to, guilt. He had made the decision thinking of profits, not people. He told himself everyone would land on their feet, that it was just business. But seeing them now, not on paper, but on the pavement, was different. Real. He leaned back in the seat, wrestling with the weight of what he saw. It was no longer just about a puppy or a pink slip. It was about what kind of man he was going to be next. The man stepped out of his car and walked slowly back toward the sidewalk, the noise of the city fading behind the buzz in his ears. His polished shoes crunched gently on gravel as he approached. The little girl looked up, surprised but hopeful. The puppy barked once, a small, tired sound. He crouched beside the box, his suit creasing at the knees, something he normally would have avoided. But today, appearances didn't matter. He reached out and gently stroked the puppy's soft fur. It licked his hand with a trembling tongue. The girl let out a small giggle. "He likes you," she said with a spark in her eyes that felt far too bright for a situation so bleak. The mother, seated behind her, shifted uncomfortably. She kept her head down, eyes fixed on the ground as if avoiding the truth staring her in the face. "I'd like to buy the puppy," he said calmly. "But," He hesitated, glancing at the girl before focusing on the mother. "May I ask, what happened?" The woman looked up, just for a moment. Her gaze met his, and something passed between them, flickering recognition. Then she looked away again, her voice barely audible. "After the layoff. I couldn't find anything. Not with my background, not with her to care for. The bills piled up. She gestured toward the box and the sign, this was all we had left that someone might actually want." Her voice didn't tremble, but her hands did. She wasn't begging, just telling the truth. There was a quiet dignity in her honesty. He nodded slowly, swallowing the weight in his throat. He'd come looking to fix something. But now he understood, this wasn't just about giving help. It was about giving her back what was taken, without stripping away her strength. The apartment was quiet that night, dimly lit by a single lamp in the corner. The little girl had fallen asleep on the worn couch, the puppy curled beside her, both breathing softly in unison. The mother sat nearby, sorting through overdue bills with tired eyes, her fingers trembling slightly as she did the math for the 100th time. Then came the knock. She froze. It was late, too late for visitors. Carefully, she approached the door, heart quickening. Peering through the peephole, she saw only a courier in a blue jacket, holding a large envelope. No words were exchanged. He handed it over, nodded politely, and disappeared down the hallway. Puzzled, she closed the door and turned the envelope in her hands. It was thick, official-looking, but had no name, no return address. Just her name written neatly across the front. She opened it with trembling fingers. First, a typed letter. A formal tone, but sincere. An apology, for the layoff, for the abruptness, for the silence that followed. It acknowledged her years of hard work and the weight of the decision made from behind corporate walls. Next came a job offer, from the same company. A better position than before, with flexible hours and childcare support. And beneath that, a check. Enough to cover months of rent, groceries, and the debt that had nearly drowned her. Tucked at the bottom was a handwritten note, short and simple. "Someone your daughter touched believes in second chances." She pressed the note to her chest, eyes filling with tears. It wasn't just about the money or the job. It was the first time in a long time that someone saw her, not just as someone who'd been laid off, but as someone who mattered. In that quiet moment, redemption didn't need a name. The glass doors of the company headquarters slid open with a soft hiss, letting in the hum of the city. Inside, the sleek marble lobby gleamed under the morning light. Executives bustled past, security guards nodded politely, and a receptionist answered phones with practiced ease. But all movement seemed to pause, just for a moment, when she walked in. The woman stood tall, dressed in a smart blazer and slacks, hair neatly pulled back. There was quiet confidence in her stride, but it was the little girl beside her who held her hand like a victory flag. She wore a bright smile and clutched the puppy's chew toy in her other hand. They approached the front desk. Waiting nearby, leaning casually against the counter, was the man. No longer the distant CEO, but someone visibly changed. His tie was loosened, his posture relaxed, but his eyes were full of something softer. Respect. Relief. He stepped forward and knelt, smiling at the girl as he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small rubber chew toy. "I think someone forgot this," he said warmly, holding it out. The girl's eyes lit up as she took it. "You bought our puppy," she exclaimed, the surprise and delight in her voice filling the lobby with something unspoken, but deeply felt. The woman met his gaze then. No words passed between them, just a nod. Not of obligation, but understanding. He nodded back. It wasn't about charity anymore. It wasn't even about correction. It was a moment of shared humanity, of mended dignity, and futures realigned. As the receptionist handed the woman her new employee badge, the girl skipped beside her, toy in hand. And just like that, they walked forward, into new beginnings, leaving the weight of the past behind.